Jim Rogers, of course, legendary investor, CEO of Rogers Holdings, author as well of A Gift to My Children. He joins us in a CNBC exclusive. Always nice to have Jim Rogers. I haven't had him on the program. Jim, and I also want to hear from you right away. I mean, what's going to happen here? There is this sense, I think, that we are at an important point, an inflection point perhaps, when it comes to this year and a half that we've already been dealing with Greece's ability to pay its bills.
David, as you well know, crises usually happen in the fall. Well, here we are in September with October coming up next. So here we are doing it yet again. The good news would be if Greece did go bankrupt. If you ask me, this morning, in Europe anyway, Greek interest rates were over 90%. Maybe the market's telling us it's finally time.
Well, what would happen, in your opinion, if that were the case? And again, of course, we are seeing the euro significantly weaker this morning. Would you expect that to continue? Can we get through a Greek default without destabilizing everything else?
Well, if Greece defaults, you've got to have some other people defaulting too, such as Italy and Spain and Ireland and a few others. But David, if they did that, obviously the euro would go down a fair amount, but I would buy all the euro I could at that point, because then that would mean that Europe is going to have a very strong, sound currency. People cannot lie about their finances anymore. People have to run a tight ship. It'd be a lot of pain between now and then, but boy, if that happened in the next month or so, buy all the euro you can.
Jim, Bob Pisani here. Bob Pisani here, Jim. You mentioned it's time, and you're just at the top there. Time for what? Is it time for the Greeks to default? Is it time for the Greeks to leave the euro? Is it time for the Germans to leave the euro? What is it time for?
It's time for people to acknowledge reality, and if you're bankrupt, go bankrupt, reorganize. People have been, countries have been going bankrupt for centuries. There's nothing new about it. It's time for everybody to accept reality. The people who lent the money take losses. I don't see why good, honest Austrian taxpayers or Dutch taxpayers should bail out Greece or Ireland or anybody else. Accept reality. Take your losses. Go bankrupt. Reorganize and start over. Many countries have done it and have boomed afterwards.
Except that they're part of a monetary union, Jim, that doesn't seem to allow for for countries to be able to basically exit. And so that becomes the larger question here as to how, if in fact this ultimately occurs, what would happen?
I didn't say exit. I said go bankrupt and reorganize. In America, we've had cities, counties, states go bankrupt over the past couple of hundred years. It didn't end the United States. It didn't end the United States dollar. They just went bankrupt, reorganized, creditors lost money, and they started over. That's all that would have to happen.
Yeah, but you're not worried, Jim, about the European banking system? I mean, at the core of this crisis, it comes back to that. The holes in the balance sheets of the European banks that hold not just Greek paper, but Spanish paper, Italian paper. You go on and on with it, and the losses they would take that they're not in a position to take.
Yes, David, I said there'll be a lot of pain, a whole lot of pain, but banks can go bankrupt, banks can reorganize. They've got to reorganize. The new head of the IMF has said to all of them, guys, you've got to raise more capital. They do. They're the ones who bought all this garbage. Why should you and I and Finnish taxpayers bail out some banks who made mistakes? I didn't make those loans. They made the loans.
Tell me the logic when you say if Greece defaults, then Italy's going to go too. Walk me through that thought process.
Well, there are several countries in Europe that have deep debt problems. You know the names as well as I do. Spain, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece. Those are the big ones that have problems right now. I would just suspect that if Greece went bankrupt, then the market's going to look around for the next 2 or 3. Italy doesn't have to go bankrupt. No, they don't have to. I'm just saying there would be a lot of turmoil and pressure in the market if that happened.
But isn't that...
But guys, you saw that Stark resigned.
You know what, Jim? We're going to hold it there. We're going to take a break and come back. I want to talk commodities and currencies with Jim Rogers, who, as you see, joins us from Paris. This is a nice spot to be, but that looked awfully nice.
That's a great bank.